Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to KSR's rapid reaction of Kentucky's 94-64 win over the Arkansas Razorbacks in the first round of the women's SEC tournament. It was the win that Kentucky needed to get this fun started, right? Kentucky beat Arkansas by 20 earlier in the season, but, early in that game, I think it was tied at 17. I'm talking about the game on February 1st. And, Kentucky got out to the slow start and it felt sluggish. And, they pulled out the 20-point win, but, there was a lot of time in that game where it didn't really feel like Kentucky dominated. Well, that was not the story today. Kentucky gets out to a 29-10 lead at the end of the first quarter, so that's good right there. And then Kentucky, things kind of slow down in the second quarter a little bit. They're only up, I think, 42-33 at the half. But then the second half, they completely wipe the floor with the Hogs. They do their thing, and Kentucky cruises to a 30-point win. And that's exactly what you needed to start this SEC tournament. First of all, just the scene here in Greenville. Big fan of this venue. Big fan of Bon Secours Wellness Arena. It's always a fun time here. It's a great women's basketball venue, I feel like. First of all, I guess, it never really crossed my mind for these early session games on, and maybe it's just Wednesday, I don't know. But basically, the whole arena was filled with middle schoolers and elementary schoolers. And so that made for an interesting, fun, awesome environment, And I think the main thing for me was it was a rowdy. I mean, it was a rowdy environment. Like it's hard to take away, that from the game. I was a big fan of how, the kids were involved, and I was talking to some of the players in the locker room just now. It really seemed like a lot of those kids were pro Kentucky fans. And maybe it's like I was explaining to one of them, well, maybe it's just because you guys were doing good and they were just rooting for anything positive happening. And it worked out in their favor. But regardless, Kentucky gets the much needed win. Amelia Hess and Asia Boone, this is by far my favorite storyline of the day and probably going to be my favorite storyline of the whole tournament. Amelia Hess and Asia Boone are basically trading each other right now for the program single season 3-point record. I think maybe Amelia's ahead right now by like one or two, but I mean they both passed around Howard today for the most in a single season in UK history, and they're now fighting for that record. And I say fighting. I asked them both in the locker room what they thought of it, and they're like, "It's a fun competition, but at the end of the day, we want to win, and of course, that's the attitude you want to have." Claire Strack was great today. I looked at one point. I don't have final stats in front of me or anything like that. I know at one point she had 18, 13, and 3 with the blocks, so that's always great to see. Jordan Obi, shout out to her. She had a double-double as well. And I thought she did a really good job today. The thing I noticed, and you kind of seen this all season long, which, if the offense isn't working for Jordan, she's at least going to hold serve on the defensive end. But we actually did get a lot of that offensive stuff today, and that was very fun to watch. She had a 3 or 2, and she was confident. I feel like Jordan's maybe struggled with the confidence from beyond the arc this season, but she did a really good job today of kind of letting it fly when need be. And again, I thought she had a great performance. Kaylin Carroll, not her best offensive game, but again, I thought did some stuff defensively you like to see. Tony Morgan, like she looked like Tony Morgan again today. It was just a fun game all around, right? And this, again, is what you needed. Kentucky tomorrow plays Georgia, same time, 11 a.m. Eastern on SEC Network. And look, Georgia's a team that has beaten you already. You were obviously without Tiani Key, but they beat you on your home floor. I think there is a idea in the locker room that they want to get payback for that game. I was talking to one of the players and they mentioned that. But, at the end of the day, this is how you needed to start, because it's like I was asking the players. Obviously a win today means you advance in the SEC tournament, and that's great. But at the same time, it's also a great confidence-building win because, again, the way that game over a month ago started, it was tied at 17. And you're thinking, okay, why are we so sluggish? That didn't really happen today except for a couple minutes in the second quarter. It was such a big lead at one point that Josie Gilvin and Gabby Brooks were all in at the end of the third quarter, really. And it was nice to see them get some run. Josie Gilvin, by the way, We have a quick shout out that Josie Gilvin made some good plays defensively. Comes in, her first play is a smart play, kind of right in front of me, out of bounds, deflects it off Arkansas, and it's Kentucky ball, right? She scored a two, right? The good stuff happened there. I really, really wish Gabby Brooks got a three. I think she had a shot at it and it just didn't go in. But again, for Kentucky, the good thing was you came into this game and you beat the opponent you were supposed to beat, and you did it in the way you should, right? This wasn't like the Auburn game that we just watched not that long ago, where yeah, you're a lot better than Auburn, but you squeaked by with the win because you're not totally dialed in or whatever the reason may be. Just don't execute. Kentucky did that today, right? They were hitting threes. It was a fun basketball game, right? And I know Arkansas is not great. They almost finished winless in this conference. They did manage to beat Auburn, to end their regular season. But, for Kentucky, you again, you did the job. And now you play a team tomorrow that you need to get revenge. And then if you're able to beat Georgia, we saw how that South Carolina game went. We saw how close it was. And there's no reason to think, why Kentucky doesn't have a shot in that game either. But um, again, and I've echoed the sentiment throughout this rapid reaction, but it was just a win that you needed to get. I'm probably going to be kicked out of where I'm at soon. Not a ton of great places in this venue for recording, and of course, obviously, they're switching between sessions. Florida is playing right now. I want to say they're playing Auburn, but I don't know that for a fact off the top of my head, unfortunately. I do know Florida is playing, though. But, we'll see how the rest of the SEC bracket stands up, right? Of course, Wednesday, you're not going to see South Carolina or Texas play. But it's going to be a fun weekend here, or a fun week, excuse me. And Kentucky, at the end of the day, is alive for one more day. And, survive and advance. We normally say that with March Madness, but that applies here too, right? Kenny Brooks, I talked to him a little bit. He hit on Mitch Barnhart retiring. I won't spill too much into that. I'm going to release that in an article later today, most likely. But he had very kind things to say about Mitch Barnhart, obviously. Brought Kenny here, helped him get started in what Kenny called a new trajectory for his career. So that's that's one. It was touching, honestly, but that's good to hear. But I think at the end of the day, this program is in a spot where like we are on the right path with Kenny Brooks, with things, and of course you saw it today with a 30-point win. So before I get out of here, I got to wrap this thing up. So I'm Phoenix Stevens here from Bon Secours Wellness Arena here at the Women's SEC Tournament. Pretty sure I saw a former Arkansas coach, Mike Neighbors, walk by. He coached them last season and for several years before that, but he's an analyst now for the SEC Network, kind of like Kelly Harper was after she was let go from Tennessee. So that's fun. Like Mike, he was a nice guy. Anyway, I'm Phoenix Stevens here with KSR's rapid reaction of Kentucky's 94-64 win. I'm going to get out here. There's a hole being stared through me by this SEC person over here, and they're walking towards my direction. So thank you all so much for tuning in. I'm Phoenix Stevens again. Until next time, peace out. Go Cats.